There is saying for higher criticism. Just as we have taken the example of critical edition of you can go through the critical edition of Mahabharata. One more research has, been done in the recent years is about we are aware of the text Abhijnana Shakuntalam, but Vasanta has explored of the Abhijnana Shakuntalam based on Kashmiri recension. And according to him, that Kashmiri recension, original, or it goes nearer to the original text. Other edition he considered as the stage version. ओरिजिनल म्हणजे मूळ आवृत्तीवरून किंवा मूळ रंग आवृत्त्या तयार करण्यात येतात तशा प्रकारे. So he has categorized some time before I told you the process. He has followed that process and came with, the critical edition. Kashmiri recension. So he has utilized 5 Sharada manuscripts. And he propounds that Kashmiri recension is the oldest one. And it stands first, means it stands nearer to the Kalidasa's version. Then, the Maithili and Bengali recensions on the 2nd and 3rd step. And then Dakshinatya and Devanagari text on the 4th and 5th level. So now, while doing this, he has also utilized certain tools of higher criticisms. Okay, but it is mainly the part of lower criticism because without the collation, recension of the manuscripts which are undertaken the study. So there is definitely a lot of preparing such editions text, because a lot of work needs to be done in this particular area, but it needs a long time, patience, and also teamwork some of the times. Now we come to higher criticism. So once the edition is there or critical edition is there, then we assess the author's work, the style, the language, the literary aspect, philosophical aspect, social aspect, political aspect, etc. We also like to know the life of the author, biography of the Kalidas, or Patanjali, then who was Patanjali, like that. While composing the text, the circumstances, which are, which must have, means, for example, if a particular court of a particular king, then that certainly influences, that particular text. Like, for example, it is considered that he was in Gupta period. That particular period has influenced his writing, or whether if he was in the court of a king, then whether that has influenced his writings. Like that, we have to, understand that not writing more about, the people who are, means he's mostly writing about the kings, the queens, but not about the other people, like Shudraka writes in Mruchakatika. Okay, the common people, basically. Because, his ideas were influenced in the circumstances he was living in, the situation in which, what was the purpose of, that particular composition. That also matters. Influence on the author, whether, author was influenced. Like, for example, if we study Meghadoot, then in the beginning, it is, you may have find this scholarly remark by many, that this Dhuta Kavya was, first composed by Kalidas. But was it influenced by someone? No, because there was no such Kavya. But yes, he must have been inspired by, Hanumat Dautya, which is there in the Ramayana. So there is a, glimmering influence. But Kalidasa then has influenced many, because we get many Dhuta Kavyas after Kalidasa. So Dhuta Kavya becomes Similarly, if we take the example of Kautilya Arthashastra, he has mentioned many writers in his composition. So definitely there is influence. But Kautilya was such an influential person that he has influenced, later writers in such a way that there were many writings on the Arthashastra topics. We can see there was Kamandaka, there was Shukra, Somadeva, etc. And they have produced such treatises. Similarly, so the influence, like for example, Patanjali's Yoga Sutra has influenced many writers in the later period. Then there are many commentaries, there are many treatises. So we have to study that contribution of the author, whether it is remarkable or whether it is significant or whether it is insignificant, it is minor or major. That we have to evaluate what is the contribution of that particular author in the field, determining the place and value of the writer, and ultimately we have to evaluate that what is the value of that particular writing, what is the value. So these all form the part of higher criticism, and you are learning about different methods of higher criticism in few days as a part of this workshop. Okay, but before that you need criticism as well. Therefore, I provided we can say a cursory glance. Still that feels very deep and vast. One can go into deep if one is interested. Hello. Hope I am audible.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes.
So when we are considering about higher criticism, we have to adopt certain theories, certain approaches. So if you take a particular text, okay, for a research, for study, you need to take particular approach. Whether you will study Kalidasa's Meghaduta from poetic approach, or from philosophical approach, or from psychological approach, etc. And after that, you have to implement or employ a particular theory. For example, Valmiki Ramayana can be studied from poetic perspective. If you are understanding that Valmiki Ramayana from poetic perspective, you need to know poetic theories. But if you have decided Valmiki Ramayana to understand, to criticize from social perspective, then you need to have the entire toolkit of the social theories, sociological theories. You may still evaluate Ramayana from philosophical approach. So you need to have the background of Darshana literature, all the philosophical systems, so that you can see the reflections of those darshanas in Valmiki Ramayana. You can study Valmiki Ramayana from psychological perspective also, because many emotions are described, and in what manner they are described, you can evaluate them from on the basis of psychological theories, both Indian and Western. Similarly, you can study Ramayana from the political perspective, because there is a lot of such stuff, like there is a war strategy, the relations between different kings, different states. So one can study, apply the theories from Kautilya Arthashastra or other Smriti literature to Ramayana as well. Or one may apply certain Western theories as well. While doing so, one can get help of Nyaya, Mimamsa, grammar, etymology, Tantra Yukti. These tools, these ancient methods of research, one can apply to it. Okay. So it depends on which approach you have undertaken for a study. Without that, it will not be possible. One has to be very clear with the approach, whether it is philosophical approach, psychological approach, political, poetic approach, or what? Then only your direction will be clear. If you just take Valmiki Ramayana, if you just take Yoga Sutra, if you just take Artha Shastra, that is not enough. You need to decide your way of approaching the text, perspective of looking at the text. Without that, your direction will not be clear at all. Okay. So now what we will do is, I will give you the idea of certain theories of structuralism, narratology, and poetics, because you have already studied Nyaya, Mimamsa, and Tantra Yukti, and you will be studying grammar and etymology. And see, the theories of sociology, philosophy, psychology, and politics you may study if your studies requires so. If your study is such, that you need to explore such theory. For example, you can suppose you want to analyze certain texts from Freudian theory. Okay. So you need to first understand what is the theory of Freud. Then can you apply it to Sanskrit text like that? Or even you can apply the theories of psychology which are there in the Indian perspective. They are reflected in Bharata's Natya Shastra, for example, or we have psychological theories in philosophical texts like Yoga Sutra and other, darshanas like Vedanta, etc. So one may apply that also. So one has to go into the details of those theory first and then apply it to the text which is undertaken for the study. Then there can be gender theories also, like the theory of feminism. So one can study, those theories. Means the application of those theories can be done to our text. So, for example, one may find out, the feminism or the status of women in Kalidasa's literature, or maybe in Artha Shastra or the Smriti text, like that. Okay. So now we will touch few theories. We will try to understand, because it is necessary to have understood, at least, theories are there and one can apply them while doing research. So first we will understand the basics of structuralism. This is also now, structuralism was propounded basically by the Swiss linguist Ferdinand de Saussure. Okay, and this theory basically evolved as a part of linguistics. भाषाशास्त्रामध्ये तिचा उगम झालेला आपल्याला दिसतो, because he did the study of the structures in language and how the language is formed, and he arrived at the conclusion that linguistic sign, there is a means भाषा म्हणजे काय आहे, एक प्रकारे एक चिन्ह आहे किंवा त्याला आपण प्रतीक असं म्हणू शकतो. And त्या भाषेची दोन अंग आपल्याला दिसतात, किंवा त्याला शब्द असं म्हणता येऊ शकेल. आणि there are two aspects of that is signifier and the signified. So signifier is actually the physical sound. जेव्हा आपण कोणताही शब्द उच्चारतो, that is called as signifier. For example, कमल असं जर म्हटलं, that is called as signifier. And signified means that particular concept which is signified or denoted by that particular word. त्यामुळे कमल असं म्हटल्यावर ते पाण्यात उमलणारं फूल, अशी जी संकल्पना आपल्या डोळ्यासमोर येते, that is considered as signified. Now this is about basic language structure actually. Okay, it has two basic units which is he has named that as a lang and parallel. Okay, it is a system of signs. But later on, this particular theory is applied by many other theorists, different streams of knowledge, psychology, literature, sociology, etc. Okay, and therefore it is useful even for the student of literature. It can be applied to philosophy as well. Now, what is the use of this? When we have a literature, any literary piece for a study, first we have to understand the structure of it and categorize accordingly. So when we understand the structure, then by that structure we can derive the meaning. So how do we interpret is, by understanding the structure. So this theory assumes that everything has a particular structure. So any story has a particular structure. त्यामुळे रामायण जर बघितलं तर त्याचं एक स्ट्रक्चर आहे, त्याची एक संरचना आहे असं आपल्याला दिसतं. महाभारताची सुद्धा एक संरचना आहे. We can divide it into structure. Though it is vast, it is lengthy, we can divide it into a structure. And then we can analyze. So definitely it is useful for the students of epics and Puranas, even for the students of Sanskrit and others. I have given this example because I think you had taken this example in earlier lecture, that Putana episode, that paper you had read from the academia. So while analyzing the narrative of Putana, what I had done is I had collected all the versions which are available of Putana narrative. So I get the versions from Harivamsha, Vishnu Puran, Bhagavad Puran, and Brahma Vaivarta Puran. So now I analyze the elements from that narrative. So what I understand, narrative of Putana in Harivamsha is abridged, but it is getting, improvised in later text like Vishnu Puran, Bhagavad Puran, Brahma Vaivarta Puran, like that. So some elements were definitely, strange because they are variants, we can say. For example, in Harivamsha, Putana is described as a bird. Okay. But such mention is not there in Vishnu Puran, Bhagavad Puran, or Brahma Vaivarta Puran. Then she is mentioned as Balagrahi or Balaghatini frequently again and again. But that mention is there in Vishnu Purana and Bhagavad Puran, not in Harivamsha. Then she has a beautiful form that is mentioned in later version, but not in earlier versions like Harivamsha and Vishnu Purana. Then, when she was burnt afterwards, when, she was killed by Krishna, there was a good fragrance like aguru, chandana, etc. That mention is there in Bhagavata Puran, but not in earlier text. In Harivamsha and Vishnu Purana, it is simply said that, okay, she was sent to death by Lord Krishna. But that death is observed by Bhagavata Purana as liberation. And Brahma Vaivarta Purana further adds that she departed in jeweled chariot to Goloka. So we can see, philosophical development in Bhagavata Purana and Brahma Vaivarta Purana. Because Brahma Vaivarta Purana further elaborates the concept of Goloka, that once, a person is liberated, the Krishna devotee will go to Goloka naturally. And therefore, even Bhagavata Purana has added that element that her body was smelling like aguru when she was burnt on the path. That is a suggestion, that is a narrative code or sign to suggest that, she not merely died, but she got liberated because of the touch of the Lord Krishna. So here the Putana Vadha gets transformed into Putana Moksha in these particular texts like Bhagavata Purana. Now we may find it strange that Putana was demoness, then how she got liberated? Therefore, Brahma Vaivarta Purana starts justificatory narrative, which is not there in earlier versions, we can see. And in the Brahma Vaivarta Purana, her previous birth is also narrated, that she was a daughter of Bali and she was named as Ratnamala in Vamana Avatara, and she had wished that, that Vamana should be her son. Lord understood her desire and fulfilled that in the next birth. And therefore, she breastfed the milk to the Krishna. Now, this justification was not present in earlier versions because Brahma Vaivarta Purana felt the need to justify this particular point, that why and how Putana was liberated, because people will be misled otherwise that though Putana was demoness, she was Rakshasi, she got liberated. This is a strange. So that matter is clarified by Brahma Vaivarta Purana. Therefore, this point comes. So these, are like signs which I was referring, earlier. These are like signs. Even the Bala Graha, that is very important term that acts as a narrative sign, because that suggests that there was a belief in earlier time, ancient times, on Bala Graha, that child scissors. When the child was born, there were different rituals, and certain deities were propitiated in order to keep them away from the child. So Putana was one among them. She was Balagrahi. And some certain rituals which are, taking place later in Bhagavata Purana, that Gopucha Brahmana, etc., that, related to cow, many are there, to ward that evil, and, it may act as a medicine also. And then Balagraha are mentioned in Ayurvedic text also. So it comes as a kind of disease also. So now we can see that if Balagraha is a kind of disease, then Putana may be symbolic. She is not really a kind of Rakshasi, but a kind of disease which is allegorized and personified as a Rakshasi. So for understanding this interpretation, first to understand the structure is necessary. To understand the structure through different versions is also necessary. Comparing those versions is necessary. And then we can understand those symbols, those narrative signs in very clear manner after comparing them. And then we are in a position to interpret that particular narrative. Then we may get, philosophical reflections from this particular narrative, because there is definitely influence of this Vaishnava philosophy here, because she went to Goloka. It is not a mere liberation that she got merged into Brahman or something. No, it is not like that. She went to Goloka. So here is the influence of Vaishnava philosophy. Okay. And that influence is important, because here, like this, there is a development in the philosophical understanding, that the concept of liberation has also, undergoing certain change. Okay. So in that manner, we can understand. So by the adopting, the approach of structuralism, applying the theory of structuralism, we have to do the rigorous scrutiny of the narrative we are understanding. Now, another, we can take the theory of narratology. Again, it is a vast theoretical branch, we can say, because it is considered as a Western branch of study, as originated by Thoreau in 19th century, then further developed by Gannett and Roland Barthes. But of course, ह्याला कथनात्मक शास्त्र असं म्हणू शकतो. आणि आपण बघतो की आपली भारतीय परंपरा जी आहे ती मौखिकी परंपरा आहे, आणि त्यामुळे साहजिकच आपल्याकडे कथनाची परंपरा असल्यामुळे कथनात्मक शास्त्र जे आहे ते सुद्धा विकसित झालेलं दिसतं. फक्त त्याला कथनात्मक शास्त्र असं म्हटलं गेलेलं नाहीये, पण म्हणून आपल्याकडे नरेटॉलॉजी हे शास्त्र अस्तित्वातच नव्हतं असं म्हणता येणार नाही. So K. Ayyappa Panikar has, given a narratological framework according to Indian perspective. Okay, he has given 10 principal features by Ayyappa Panikar. For example, there are many aspects to be analyzed, but I'll give you one example. For example, serialization. Okay, means Shrunkhalatmaka Kathana. That one narrative is connected with the another. That is again connected with the another. It can be called as chain narrative. So we find this feature in many our treatises. For example, it can be there found in Panchatantra, that one tale is connected with the other, and there is connectivity. Okay. Then there is Parimandala Kathana also. Okay, or which is called as box within a box narrative. And that is also found in many narratives. Like, for example, we can see in Kadambari also, that narrative within the narrative we can see. Okay. So such principles are also there. Then the theory of poetics also can come under this, because this was the way to narrate by poets, and then we have to appreciate that. But if we see the Westerners' approach, then again there are different theories which focus on understanding narrative mood, narrative science, as I was referring to, implied author, real author, etc. That who has narrated. For example, our many Puranic texts, or even Ramayana, Mahabharata, they are in the form of dialogues. Okay, you will find the terms like Vyasa Uvacha, then Vaishampayan Uvacha, like that. So they are told by someone to someone. Then that in that narrative also there are small narratives. त्यामुळे आख्यान उपाख्यान अशा परंपरा दिसतात. So the question comes, who was the real narrator? And we have to solve that when we are studying a particular text. So whether Vyasa was a real author, whether Valmiki was a real author, or they was just appointed narrators, they were just compilers and someone else was a real author, or they were just floating literature and they were just compiled by these people. Same with the Panchatantra. It is said to be composed by Vishnu Sharma, but Vishnu Sharma comes within the framework of the story. So what was the narrative time? So in the story there is some time which is mentioned, like for example in Bhagavata Purana, it is the beginning, it is said that it is described the awful time which is Sandhi Kala between Dwapara and Kali, etc. So when it was actually composed, so if we do academic study, there may be different time periods which we may get, like 6th century, 7th century, like that. Then they are imagining the time period which was before Kali Yuga, and they are saying that this is very much appropriate for Kali Yuga. So we have to understand the time difference, the narrative perspective we have to understand. From which perspective it is written, narrative focus, whether narrator is focusing on one character, two characters, what is that focus of the narrator, like that. Then there are tools of transtextuality. For example, intertextuality. This is a form of allusion or quotation. For example, Ramakatha is found in many Puranas. Ramakatha is also there in Mahabharata. So we have to understand that, we have to compare that, and then we have to understand that why was it was necessary to be mentioned in other text, and how they are mentioned, how they are different than Valmiki Ramayana. Then paratextuality. It is a relation between one text and its paratext that surrounds the main body of the text. For example, Yoga Sutra. If it is one text, then there are many texts which are can be called as allied treatises. There can be different bhashyas. There are some independent text which helps to understand and gain more clarity over the Yoga Sutra, or they elaborate the point in further tradition. Same we can see about Kautilya's Arthashastra also. It is a one text, but there are surrounding text, okay, which can be called as allied text. Then there is archetextuality, which is what we can say, it is a relationship of inclusion that links each text to various types of discourse it belongs to. So it creates a kind of discourse, basically. For example, if we are studying the story related to Ramayanas, then it becomes like a genre of Ramakatha. Then you are studying Ramakatha. So you may also study the narrative of South Asian countries. South Asian Ramayanas also, you may study at that time. The Ramayana in Indonesia, Ramayana in Bali, Ramayana in Thailand, like that. It will include, because you are studying Ramakatha. Then there is metatextuality. So it means what? It is a that links the commentary to the text it comments on. So it basically includes commentary lecture. So while interpreting the text, we are supposed to take references from these different texts. So this is called as transtextuality. We are supposed to take references from its commentary. So if I want to study Rigveda, then definitely I have to read Sayana Bhashya and other commentaries, some traditional and modern commentators as well. If I am reading Yoga Sutra, I have to study Vyasa Bhashya and even other commentaries, even modern commentaries. Then hypertextuality means what? Authors use, rework, translate, or otherwise expand upon source text. So there is one source text, but it is used and reused. Like for example, Valmiki Ramayana was one text, but it is again and again written, by many regional writers. So basic structure is same. That there will be same characters like Ram, Sita, Lakshman. But there will be definitely variations according to those socio-cultural conditions, the purpose, and that is our aim to find out. That's what I said, forms the part of higher criticism. That why, one has written basically such Ramayana. There are some Ramayanas written by female writers also. And sometimes they reflect the sort of feminism. Because they give justice, kind of justice to Sita. Like that. There are Jain Ramayanas or Buddha Ramayanas also. So in those, Rama is not killing Ravana, because Jainism and Buddhism have a lot of importance to ahimsa. So Rama is not killing Ravana. So there are variations in the story. So those Ramayanas were, Jain Ramayanas and Buddha Ramayanas were written to propagate Jaina principles or, Buddha principles. So in Buddhist Ramayanas, Rama is considered as Bodhisattva. So we have to understand this particular, philosophical framework by these tools of transtextuality. Then it is possible to interpret. So this is all, included in what we can say higher criticism. Okay. Now we go to the theories of poetics. As I said earlier, that we are studying different text. So if you decide to study a particular text from poetic approach, then you should know what are the theories of the poetics. Then only it is possible to apply these theories to particular text. So if you want to study, suppose Uttara Ramacharitam, okay, from poetic approach, then which theory you are going to apply? Because again, poetics is very vast. Whether you want to apply rasa theory, alankara theory, gunariti, dhvani, vakrokti, or auchitya. In that also there can be subtypes, because these theories are also rigorous and vast. In depth, they are addressed by their writers. So in short, we will have their, what we can say, glimpses. First of all, rasa theory, rasa siddhanta, is propounded by Bharata Muni in Natya Shastra. Basically, Natya Shastra is a source book for all performing arts. Okay, we can get all the elements, the germs of the later theories in Natya Shastra. So it is followed by many rhetoricians, and we still have to go back to the Bharata's Natya Shastra if we are studying any point related to poetics. Okay, and it means dramaturgy also, of course, because though it is known as Natya Shastra, it is considered as dramaturgy. The ancient Indian drama included music, dance, and different arts were inclusive in that particular drama. So this Natya Shastra is applicable to all kinds of arts also. So even these theories of Indian poetics are not just limited to what we call as kavya, but they are also applicable to any kind of art. So theories of Indian poetics also can be called as theories of Indian aesthetics, ज्याला आपण सौंदर्य शास्त्र असं म्हणतो. Okay. So we need to understand these theories if we have undertaken this approach or perspective in our research. Okay. So rasa theory is important to understand because it is propounded by Bharata Muni. And other theories also we can find, the germs in Natya Shastra, but they are propounded by different writers afterwards, Bharata Muni. So Alankara was propounded by Bhamaha. He gives importance to the principle of Alankara, that is figures of speech, embellishment. Okay. Gunariti Siddhanta, it is propounded by Vamana, and he has given importance to Guna, that is poetic excellences, merits, and Riti, that is style, which is the soul of the poetry. It is considered. So, in later writings, we can see there was a attempt to understand what is the soul of the poetry. What is that one element which creates beauty in the poetry? So Bhamaha said it is Alankara, Vamana said it is Gunariti, Anandavardhana said Dhvaniratma Kavyasya. So he has criticized the artificial uses of word and meaning because in his time, we can see that there was much emphasis on the artificial writing. पांडित्य प्रदर्शनावर खूप भर दिला जात असे आणि त्यामुळे त्याने त्याच्यावर टीका केलेली दिसते आणि ध्वनीला महत्व दिलेलं आहे. Then there is another writer called Kuntaka. He has written a treatise called Vakrokti Jivita, and he has propounded the theory of Vakrokti. Vakrokti means striking expression or novelty, which comes out of matured poetic genius. Then comes the theory called Auchitya, which is propounded by Kshemendra in Auchitya Vichara Charcha. And he has again, classified into 27 types of Auchitya. Now, as we can see, Rasa or Rasa Siddhanta, it may be Gunariti or Alankara. They're addressing, the both that is poet and the connoisseur. कवी आणि सहृदय या दोहोंना उद्देशून आपल्याला हे सिद्धांत दिसतात. कारण कवींनी काय केलं पाहिजे, कशा प्रकारे काव्य लिहिलं पाहिजे याचं तर ते मार्गदर्शन करतातच. शिवाय जो सहृदय आहे, वन हू इज अप्रिशिएटिंग दॅट पोएट्री, हाऊ वन शुड अप्रिशिएट. So the one who is appreciating also needs a proper training. म्हणजे जे काव्यशास्त्र, साहित्यशास्त्र किंवा अलंकार शास्त्र ज्याला म्हटलेलं आहे, why it is called as शास्त्र? Because it is advisory science. Shastra means to advise. It is advisory science for both a poet as well as connoisseur, because also connoisseur also need to be advised how to appreciate. One needs to get, a proper training even for appreciating. But even Dhvani, Vakrokti and Auchitya, see, there is, difference in certain perspective. Dhvani is more, subject-oriented theory. It is reader-centric theory, we can say. It allows reader to have, multiple interpretations. Dhvani is actually the theory of suggestion. Dhvani is not sound here, okay? It is suggestion. So Dhvani allows reader to understand multiple layers of the text. Now, whereas Vakrokti and Auchitya, though they are also helping the connoisseur to appreciate, they are more from the poet's perspective, because they are like the manual for the poet, that if you want to make your poetry, kavya, beautiful, what you should do. So they have given rigorous classifications. This type of Vakrokti should be there. Even Auchitya, Kshemendra has given 27 types of Auchitya. So this is like a framework which is given for the writers, for the poet, and even for the those who are appreciating, connoisseurs. So if you are taking poetics as a research approach, research perspective of your particular research paper, dissertation, or whatever, then you should decide which theory you are applying to your text, or whether you are applying all the theories. So if suppose there is a Kadambari, then I can apply Vakrukti. Because as it is said that Banabhatta is skilled in Vakrukti. Okay. So one can study Vakrukti principle or Vakrukti element from Banabhatta's Kadambari, or one can study Kalidasa's Kumara Sambhava from Auchitya perspective, or from Rasa perspective, or from Alankara perspective, like that. Okay. So we will take a few what we can say introductory understanding of these theories. As I have said, there is a great tradition of poetics right from the beginning, that is from the Natya Shastra. We can see Kavyalankara, Kavyadarsh, Kavyalankara Sara Sangraha, Kavyalankara Sutra Vritti, etc. Bhamaha, Dandi, Udbhata, Vamana. So what they are doing is they have highlighted, one of the elements, and which was already, of course, mentioned by earlier writers, but they are considering that particular principle as a soul of the poetry, and constructing their thesis accordingly. So we can see this whole tradition till Jagannath Pandit Rasa Gangadhara, who has composed the work called Rasa Gangadhara. The same thing which I mentioned, that connoisseur, it is advisory science to connoisseur. So when we are analyzing the text, we are in the role of connoisseur, Sarudaya. And Abhinava Gupta has given definition of Sarudaya as Adhikari cha tatra Vimala Pratibhanashali Sarudaya. Means the once, Vimala Pratibhanashali, who is having the heart like a mirror, means free from, any presuppositions, any assumptions, any biases, then only you can appreciate any work, actually. Not only poetic work, any work in fullest sense. So the definition of Sarudaya is very necessary to understand. Then only we are adhikari to appreciate, a particular text. And also, he should be possessed of appreciative talent. We always say that, a poet should have the poetic genius, that is pratibha. But pratibha should be there with the connoisseur also, Sarudaya also. Therefore, it is not that everyone will appreciate the poetry or arts. So there is two types of pratibha which is described. Sa pratibha dvidha, karayitri, bhavayitri cha. Karayitri means, karayitri pratibha is that because of which poet creates the beauty, poet composes, the poetry. And bhavayitri pratibha is that by which Sarudaya understand those emotions, appreciate the poetry. And one should be equipped with, such kind of pratibha. Otherwise, it is not possible to understand text from the poetic perspective. Now, as we were saying that there are different theories. So when we think about Rasa Siddhanta, we get to know the Rasa Sutra, which is mentioned in Bharata's Natya Shastra, which is known as Vibhava Anubhava Vyabhichari Sanyogat Rasa Nishpattihi. Okay. Now, this is the one formula of Rasa which is given by Bharata Muni. Now, Bharata, for the first time, formulated, or we can say use the term Rasa in technical sense. Rasyate asvadyate iti rasaha. Of course, the word rasa is used right from the Vedic times, but that word rasa is used in different senses. Like rasa means also water, poison, mercury, many meanings are there. But here rasa means aesthetic bliss. Okay, therefore rasa is defined as rasyate asvadyate iti rasaha. Rasa is that which is relished. And that rasa is also present right from the Rigveda. We can see the descriptions of, Vipralam, the different like Shrungara, Karuna Rasa, etc. We can come across such descriptions. But what is the prakriya of rasa? How that rasa is formulated? How that is processed? What are the ingredients of it? What are the, limbs of it? त्याची अंग काय आहेत, त्याची साधनं काय आहेत, हे मात्र भरत मुनींनी प्रथमच नाट्यशास्त्रामध्ये आपल्याला सांगितलेलं दिसतं. Therefore it is his great contribution actually. So it is the formula of the rasa: vibhava, anubhava, vyabhichari, sanyogat, rasa nishpattihi. So here he mentions three things: vibhava, anubhava, and vyabhichari. There is a sanyoga, there is union of vibhava, anubhava, and vyabhichari, which leads to rasa nishpatti, which makes rasa. Now these are technical terms: vibhava, anubhava, and vyabhichari. So we need to understand those technical terms. Again, the sanyoga and nishpatti, these words are little ambiguous. What kind of sanyoga it is? Sanyoga may mean, different things. Like it is just a union which is, separable later. Like suppose I keep a bottle on my table. That is also sanyoga, but that bottle can be again taken away. Is it that kind of sanyoga? Or if we mix, a certain thing in the milk, suppose I add sugar in the milk, can it be, that kind of sanyoga it is? So what kind of sanyoga? Or it is just a combination? What exactly? That is unclear, because it is a sutra. And we know that sutra is alpakshara, etc. Nishpatti is again ambiguous, because nishpatti means what exactly? Is it a creation? Is it a manifestation? It is a production, or what? Okay. So there are different commentators who have interpreted this Rasa Sutra, that what exactly Nishpatti means and how exactly Rasa is experienced by connoisseurs, how that delight in the Rasa is taken by connoisseurs. Panaka Rasa Nyaya is presented for understanding this Rasa Sutra, that is Vibhava, Anubhava, and Vyabhichari. Just like Panaka Rasa, any kind of juice, if you take, there are certain ingredients, like suppose if there is lime, sugar, salt, water, they are to be taken in the proper proportion and they are to be mixed well. Then only it will lead to a kind of juice, which will taste different than its ingredients. Similarly, Rasa is different than Vibhava, Anubhava, and Vyabhichari, but it is a homogeneous whole, which is prepared out of these ingredients. So this Rasa Siddhanta is very, very important, because it is universal theory again to appreciate beauty in all art forms. It is not just applicable to drama or poetry, but it can be applied to other arts as well. So what are these Vibhava, Anubhava, and Vyabhichari? So first we need to understand the term Bhava. So Bhava is considered as Kavyarthan Bhavayantite Bhavaha. The Bhavas are those which carry the emotion, okay, which carrying the aims of the poet to the medium of the action, etc. in the drama. Kavyarthan Bhavayantite Bhavaha. So they can be again divided into two: Sthayi Bhava and Vyabhichari Bhava. So Sthayi Bhava, as the name suggests, they are permanent emotions, and Vyabhicharis are, as the name suggests, chara means to move. Okay, they are transitory emotions. Now here Sthayi Bhavas are important in understanding the rasa, because they are the permanent moods. They are tied to particular rasa. For example, if we are understanding Shrungara rasa, then it is a rati which is responsible for the Shrungara rasa. So Sthayi Bhavas are kind of dormant emotions located in everyone's mind. Okay. And therefore there is Rasa Nishpatti. Without Sthayi it is not possible, and Sthayi is located in everyone's mind in dormant state, of course. When it gets awakened, it is called as Rasa. It is designated as Rasa. When it is triggered, then it is designated as Rasa. So this Sthayi is triggered by Vibhava, Anubhava, and Vyabhichari, as mentioned in this Rasa Sutra. Okay. Now, what are these Vibhava, Anubhava, and Vyabhichari? As we can see, Vibhavas are Karana, causes. Nimittam Hetuhu iti Paryayaha. They are the causes of the Rasa. They are again subdivided into two: Alambana and Uddipana Vibhava. Alambana is again subdivided into Ashrayalambana and Vishayalambana. So Alambana is basically Nayaka and Nayikas. Okay, the characters without which rasa is not possible. So rasa is experienced in poetry, or drama, we can say, not in the real life, because in real life we have that cause and effect relationship. We get affected by those emotions. Okay, but in drama or in the poetry, all the rasas result in the bliss, because that was the very purpose of kavya. Why the kavya was written? What is the purpose of kavya? All the politicians agree that it is for the bliss. See, other subsidiary purposes are there, that it can act as, didactic motive, etc. उपदेशपर असू शकेल वगैरे, पण तो फक्त गौण उद्देश आहे. महत्वाचा तर उद्देश हाच आहे की आनंदाची प्राप्ती, सद्य परनिवृत्ती, immediate bliss. So these all rasas, it may be bibhatsa, it may be bhayanaka, it may be raudra or karuna, they all result in bliss. So vibhava, the characters are the reason for that. Characters are the karana, therefore they are alambana. And another Ashrayalambana and Vishayalambana. Ashrayalambana is the one in which we see this delineation of rasa. ज्याच्यामध्ये रस आपल्याला निष्पत्ती झालेली दिसते त्याला आश्रयालंबन असं म्हटलं जातं. आणि ज्याच्यामुळे ती रस निष्पत्ती झाली, with reference to whom that rasa is created, that is called as Vishayalambana. Uddipana is are the other factors which are excitants or enhancing the rasa. Okay. For example, if it is the Shrungara rasa, it is the romance, if it is delineated, then of course the moonlight, the greenery, the flowing river can add to that, a particular rasa. If it is a scorching sun, lot of noise, then definitely that will create rasabhanga. But Uddipana is that which enhances the rasa. So these are totally, in totality called as vibhavas. That is karana. That is vibhava. Then there is anubhava. Anubhavas are nothing but abhinaya. This is actually a 4 types of acting, and therefore they're divided as angika, vachika, satvika, and aharya. Angika means physical gestures. Means while acting, one has to do different body gestures. Okay, the gestures of eyes, gestures of hand, they all will get included in angika abhinaya. Then vachika abhinaya, that is dialogue. How the dialogue is delivered, whether it is in very soft tone or whether it is rude tone, or even it includes how the dialogues are written. Okay, whether these are long sentences, short sentences, like that. Then aharya is a dressing style. How we know that a particular character is Rama or Ravana? From their dressing style, from their makeup. Okay, so that aharya also a kind of abhinaya, because one has to carry that with his or her acting. Then satvika is again important. They are called as psychosomatic gestures, because they are not just related with the body but also related with the mind. They are again 8 in number. Stambha, Sveda, Romancha, Swarabhanga, Vepathu, Vaivaranya, Ashru, and Pralaya. Stambha means one becomes motionless for a time period, for a moment. एखादी व्यक्ती अशीच स्तंभित होते काही काळ, मग तो भयानकाचा हे निष्पत्ती असू शकते, भयानक रसाचा भाग असू शकेल, किंवा शृंगारामध्ये पण स्तंभ हा सात्विक भाव येऊ शकतो, किंवा स्वेद सुद्धा आपल्याला तसाच दिसू शकेल. पर्स्पिरेशन, रोमांच, गुसबम्स, स्वरभंग, देर इज अ चेंज इन द व्हॉइस. सो if it is raudra rasa, then because of anger there can be sudden change in the voice. Or if it is Shrungara rasa also, there can be Swarabhanga, the voice also gets break. It is possible in Karuna. Okay. Then Vepathu is a tremor. That is also possible in Shrungara, Vayan. Vaivaranya means changing the color of the face. That is also possible in Shrungara, Karuna, Raudra, Bhayanaka. Ashru means tear. That is very common. Again, Ashru is possible in Shrungara or Karuna. Hasya also. Pralaya means one getting swoon, बेशुद्ध होणे, मूर्छित होणे, किंवा हे जे आहे ते सुद्धा आपल्याला शृंगार किंवा विप्रलंब शृंगारामध्ये दिसू शकेल. लव इन सेपरेशन or we can get it in pathos as well. But these are sattvika bhava, psychosomatic gestures. These are very difficult to be acted upon. So these are called as anubhavas. Basically, why they are called as anubhavas? Because paschat bhavyante te anubhavaha. They come afterwards. They are the signs, or they are suggesting that this particular rasa is created. This particular rasa is manifested. Therefore, they are called as consequents. Okay. So we know vibhava and anubhava and vyabhicharis. Vyabhicharis are kind of bhavas, but they are not the permanent emotions like sthai. They are not confined to particular rasa. They are, often compared with the waves of the ocean. This strengthens the sthai. And there are 33 vyabhichari bhavas which are classified by Bharata Muni. So it suggests that how, he was having the understanding of the psychology, without which it would have not been possible to classify 33 vyabhichari bhavas, different 33 vyabhichari bhavas. Okay. So with this framework, we can do rasa analysis. If there are vibhava, anubhava and vyabhichari, then only rasa nishpatti is possible. If any one ingredient is lacking or it is not delineated properly, then the rasa will not be nourished. Okay. So I have taken this example here, which you can analyze from Meghaduta. There was one yaksha who was separated from his beloved wife for a year due to a curse given by his master Kubera. And then that yaksha was living on Ramagiri, mountain Ramagiri, where, there was a lake in that before, even Sita had bathed. And he was living under the tree. He was passing his time under the dense trees. And also he was roaming from, different ashramas. Now this verse is actually example of Vipralamba Shrungar. But why we can say Vipralamba Shrungar is here? Because we can see that there is Vipralamba Shrungara which can be seen in the character called Yaksha. So Yaksha becomes the Ashraya Lambana. With reference to whom? The word is used here is Kanta, that is beloved wife. So that becomes Vishaya Lambana. Now what is the Uddipana? So we have done with Vibhavas. We have got Vibhavas. What are the Uddipanas? Varsha bhogyena bhartuho. Shapena astangamita mahima. Basically the curse is the Uddipana. Separation which is caused due to curse. And 1 year long time is there. That is causing Uddipana. If this Uddipana would have not been there, there was no case. There was no need of this Vipralamba Shrungara. So this curse, Shapena astangamita mahima varsha bhogyena bhartuho. This is Uddipana. Then another thing is, Yakshas are actually possessed of many powers, supernatural powers. But here, because of this curse, all his powers are snatched away. Therefore, Astangamita Mahima, he is not, having any powers. And because of not having powers, he can't go to his wife physically, to meet physically. It is not possible. Otherwise, Yaksha would have gone, easily to meet his wife. So he is as good as a human being. He is, living on the mountain of Ramagiri, and he can't meet his wife for a year. Okay. So these are all Uddipanas. Then another Uddipana we can find out. So it is mentioned that there was a lake, and in that lake, Sita used to do a bath. Now this is already mentioned as Ramagiri mountain. Since Rama, when he was in exile, Vanavasa, he must have lived on this particular mountain. And in that lake, Sita was taking bath. So here it reminds Yaksha that even when in Vanavasa, Ram was with Sita. He was together. They were together. But unfortunately, Yaksha is not. So it is, exaggerating or, increasing his Vipralamba, the feeling of separation. And his sorrow is becoming more and more, severe. So there are many Vyabhicharis which are there. Also, Anubhava is there, means he is actually roaming from one ashrama to the other. which actually suggests his unstable, state of mind. There are many vyabhicharis like Chinta, Dainya, Smriti, Vitarka, etc. So here the Sthai Bhava Rati is nourished by Vibhava, appropriate Vibhava, Anubhava and Vyabhichari. Then only you can experience, therefore you are experiencing Vipralamba Shrungara, otherwise not. So if you are doing rasa analysis, then you need to find out whether this rasa is well nourished, paripushta, by Vibhava, Anubhava and Vyabhichari, whether they are available, or this rasa is not delineated properly. Okay. Then there are different commentators of Rasa Sutra. About this, I will not go into detail because some of you in the subsequent semester will be learning this in detail, which I have just, touched upon. So, Rasa Sutra, it is very short expression, formulaic expression. So, that is understood by different commentators from different perspectives. It is commentated by Bhatta Lollata, Bhatta Shankuka and Bhatta Nayaka from different perspectives. They are also supposed to be from different philosophical systems. Like Bhatta Lollata is also said to be having the background of Mimamsa, so he interprets from that perspective. Shankuka is Nayayika, so he interprets from that perspective. Bhatta Nayaka interprets from Sankhya perspective, also from Kashmira Shaiva perspective. And then Abhinava Gupta's interpretation comes, because Abhinava Gupta basically has refuted all these viewpoints and then interpreted Rasa Sutra in his own way. He comes from the background of Kashmira Shaiva Pratyabhidnya Darshana, and he interprets the Rasa Sutra in very different way. He considered Rasa as Brahma Swada Sahodara, that it is very similar to the Brahma Swada, that it is, like the bliss which one gets out of Brahman. ब्रह्मानंदाच्या जवळ जाणारा आहे तो, असं त्याने त्याचं इंटरप्रिटेशन आपल्याला केलेलं दिसतं. आणि रस हा अलौकिक आहे अशी त्याची मांडणी आपल्याला केलेली दिसते, आणि ती मांडणी त्याने प्रत्यभिज्ञा शैव दृष्टिकोनातनं केलेली आहे असं आपल्याला दिसतं. So in that one aspect which is very important is because of Pratyabhijna Shaiva background, okay, he could interpret that art is a kind of yoga or any, this, it is a kind of meditation, one can say, because if you see these particular steps, one, come across to Rasa Nishpatti, then what he has described is, first, there is, rasa is an aesthetic experience. It is alaukika. It gets revealed through art. There is a process called sadharanikarana. We are actually relishing that universalized emotion, and we are having the repose. We are having, identification with that particular emotion, and therefore we are actually in our own awareness, which is called as samved or vishranti. So Abhinava Gupta understand rasa as very, similar to the spiritual bliss, basically. So artist or the connoisseur, those who are relishing also become a part of it. They are actually, relishing the glimpse of that kind of Brahmananda, we can say, and so it becomes a kind of yoga. We need to understand this in very, very detail, of course, if we want to understand this particular Siddhanta in true sense. So after that, I will introduce two other aspects also in short, very short time, of course. There is Alankara Siddhanta, which is given by Bhamaha. So he states that Alankaras or figures are very much necessary in the treatise. He says, na kantam api nirbhusham vibhati vanita mukham. That just as, Vanita Mukha, just as the face of the lady doesn't look beautiful without ornament. Similarly, poetry is not beautiful without figures. So he has given utmost importance to figures of speech. So he has classified all the alankaras. He has literally, understood what makes alankara as alankara. Alankara means beautifying agents. Why they are called as beautifying agents? So he says Atishayokti and Vakrokti are the basis. Atishayokti is a very life, pranatvena tishthate, he says. And Vakrokti is the basis of alankara. There has to be some novelty. If we again and again say that your face is like a lotus, that then it becomes very, very, usual expression. So such usual expression may not create beauty in the poetry. There has to be some novelty. So that is understood. Then even later writers have given importance to alankara. Like for example, Vamana also says kavyam grahyam alankarat, that kavya is acceptable on the basis of alankara. But what he says is kavya shobhayaha kartaraha dharmaha gunaha. That gunas are the creators of the shobha, means beauty. Alankara just enhance that beauty. So alankaras are not that who creates the beauty, but they are the gunas. So Vamana gives importance to guna siddha, gunariti siddhanta. Bhamaha has given importance to alankara siddhanta. Afterwards, Anandavardhana also says, Rupaka dehe alankara vargasya angatva sadhanam. That Rupaka, etc. alankaras can be anga, means subsidiary. So Bhamaha considers alankara as principle, prominent principle in order to create beauty. But the later writers have given subsidiary position to alankara. Alankara may not be, necessary. It is not most essential. There can be other factors which are most essential as per, their understanding, their perspective. Okay. So if you are applying alankara perspective, you need to understand what kind of alankaras are there, the classification of alankaras, the quality of that alankara, whether they are very much naturally used or artificially used just to, fulfill the criteria. One has to analyze accordingly. Then there is Gunariti theory. Guna means there are Kavya Gunas, excellences. So there are many Gunas which are, considered by different poeticians. But later on, we can say the three Gunas were accepted by all. That is Prasada, Madhurya and Ojas. Now Prasada means the words are easily understood. They are not so difficult. There are no much compounds in the language construction which is used. Whereas in Ojas, we can see the hard consonants more, and there can be, compounds also. In Madhurya, the soft consonants are more used. So Vaidarbhi generally consists of Prasada and Madhurya. Gaudi may have Ojas, more prominent, and Panchali may be combined of Madhurya and Saukumari also. So Riti means style. Vaidarbhi and Gaudi style was understood. Vaidarbhi is very easy to follow, which is used by Kalidasa, which is consisting of Prasada Guna prominently, whereas Gaudi means it is of long sentences, full of samasas, which is used by Kadambari, Banavatta. But, there can be a combination of both also. That is Vaidarbhi and Gaudi. That is called as Panchali. So Kadambari also has actually Panchali basically, because he is using Gaudi as well as Vaidarbhi. So one can analyze any particular text from Gunariti perspective also, which gunas are reflected in which verse. Verse by verse one can do analyze of Gunariti. Then Dhvani Siddhanta is again very important. Dhvani means suggestion. Okay. It is a suggested sense. And Anandavardhana considered Dhvani as the soul of poetry. Now, what is this basically Dhvani? For that, we have to know these three meanings. Whenever there is a word, there are three meanings. There can be three meanings. One is express meaning that we all know. When the word is uttered, we come across certain meaning. When I utter Kamala, then you understand that particular flower. That is Vachyartha. Like for example, the standard example which is there in Shastra, Gangayam Ghoshaha, this cowshed on Ganga. So what is the literal meaning? It is Ganga Pravahe Ghoshaha. There is a cowshed on the flow of Ganga. That is a literal meaning. But we don't take that, because how there can be, cowshed on the flow of the Ganga. So we have to understand another meaning. So Lakshartha is that when, Vachartha is inapplicable. There are 2-3 more criteria when we can take Lakshartha, but inapplicability of Vachartha is definitely there, and at that time we take Lakshartha. So at that time we say Gangayam Ghoshaha means what? Cowshed on Ganga means what? It is not on the flow of the Ganga, but it is on the bank of the Ganga. Ganga Tire Ghoshaha. That is the implied meaning. Okay. So generally these two meanings are possible. When Vachartha is not there, then we have to take Lakshartha. That is implied meaning. But suggested meaning or Vyangyartha is over and above that. It is totally different. So why one is saying that it is Gangayam Ghoshaha and not saying Ganga Tire Ghoshaha? Why one is not saying cowshed is on the bank of the Ganga? To suggest that, cowshed is literally on the flow. Means it has Shaitya Pamanatva, the cooling, that effect. And the sanctity, it is very in the vicinity of the Ganga. To show that, closeness and proximity, one is saying that Gangayam Ghoshaha. So that is the suggested meaning. So just by saying Gangayam Ghoshaha, one is understanding the coolingness and that cooling effect and sanctity which one wants to suggest. So similarly, the meaning which we understand by reading any text is a Vachartha. While understanding that text, somewhere we have to take Lakshartha also. But in the poetry, Vyangyartha or Dhvani, Vyangyartha is synonymous with Dhvani, is more important. The power of suggestion. The poet is not, explicitly talking about much, details, but it is left on the readers, left on Sarudayas. Okay. Now, for example, in this verse, Kaschit Kanta Viraha Gurana, here Yaksha is separated from his wife. The word Kanta is used here. Now, Kanta is a synonym of Patni, wife. But there are many synonyms in Sanskrit. Bharya, okay, Jaya, etc. But each one has different meaning. Bharya is derived from the root bhru, means one is to be nourished. जिचं भरण पोषण करावं लागतं ती भार्या. किंवा जाया, जायते यस्याः पुत्रः, जिने जिच्या म्हणजे काय जी माता आहे जिच्यामधून पुत्र जन्माला येतो अशी ती वगैरे वगैरे. But here the word Kanta is derived from the root kama, means to desire for. She is to be desired for. म्हणजे ती हवी हवीशी वाटणारी अशी पत्नी आहे. So beloved wife. So this word is very significant because it suggests that this separation, this Vipralamba Shringara is very much intense. Why Yaksha is, feeling this separation intense? Because she was Kanta. She was not just Patni or Jaya or Bharya. Okay. So this is left to the readers. Kalidasa is not talking this anywhere, in explicit sense. So Dhvani has rigorous classification. Again, Vastu Dhvani, Rasa Dhvani, Alankara Dhvani. He has understood all the poetic elements under the umbrella of Dhvani. Okay, Vastu Dhvani can be a kind of a statement which is suggested, just as we understood now Kanta means beloved wife is a kind of Vastu Dhvani. Rasa Dhvani is Rasa, Vipralamba Shringar we understood from that particular verse. That is Rasa Dhvani, because Rasa is not explicitly stated by Vachartha. No poet is saying that now I am using Vipralamba Shringar. So it is suggested by Vibhavas, Anubhavas and Vyabhicharis. Okay. Then Alankaras, if are there, then they also are suggested. They are not explicitly mentioned. So these are broad divisions of Dhvani, but Dhvani is, has rigorous classification, which is done by Anandavardhana. There are many subtypes. So if one is studying particular text from Dhvani perspective, then one has to go through all those subtypes and apply it to particular text. Okay. So I'm not going into those details now. Then another theory is Vakrokti. As I said, Vakrokti is striking expression or novel expression. It is defined as, defined by Kuntaka as Vaidagya Pangi Bhanitihi. It is a stylistic expression which comes out of matured poetic genius. Even he defines poetry as Shabdarthav Sahitav Kavyam Vakra Kavi Vyaparashalini. Means it is not possible if Vakrokti is not there. Vakrokti will create that, alhada or the bliss in the poetry. So without Vakrokti, it is not possible. Means Kuntaka is against using very simple, means stereotyped expressions. Any expressions which is stereotype, any trend, which is followed by many should not be adopted. There has to be something new. Where to implement is something new in everything, in the subject, in the words, in the sentence, in the expression, in the ideas, everywhere. So he has understood it on all levels. Lexical level, grammatical level, on centennial level, contextual level, and also on compositional level. So again, it is a detailed manual for a poet. So certain examples we can see. We will not cover all the examples. I will take any one example. Yeah. So here we will take the example of Pratyaya Vakrata. So Pratyaya Vakrata means we know that any pada, Suptingantam Padam, that is a definition. Okay. So any suffix is there. So one will say that, okay, according to the grammatical meaning, one will add to the suffix, but it is not like that. Poet has to carefully choose the suffix, and even connoisseur has to analyze that. Okay. Now, see here, the verse which we have done earlier, we will see the same verse for this also, so that we don't have to see different examples. Here it is said that Vasatim Ramagiriya Shrameshu. It is said. Okay. Now here, this Ramagiriya Shrameshu is a plural. Okay. That Yaksha lived in hermitages on the Ramagiri mountain. Now, naturally, there should be actually singular. Yeah. Ramagiriya Shrame, it should be. Correct. He lived in an ashrama. But here Kalidasa is using plural. Now, why it is so? Because Yaksha was not able to live in one hermitage. He was consistently changing his base, his place of living, because he was not finding solace in any one place. So here this plural form suggests that his state of mind was very, very, he was pining in the separation. त्याची जी मनाची अवस्था आहे, अस्वस्थ जी अवस्था आहे, दैन्य जे आहे, ते त्या रामगिरियाश्रमेषु या अनेक वचनामधनं आपल्याला दिसतं. So here Kalidas has deliberately used. Otherwise, we will say that, oh, Kalidas doesn't know grammar. Why he is using aneka vachana here? He would have used singular ekavachana. But here it is Vakrokti. What is that Vakrokti? It is Sankhya Vakrata. Whether it is ekavachana, dvivachana, or bahuvachana, that is also should be used very skillfully. Another example I'll take. Malaya Tatun Mulita Chandanalateva Katham Deshantare Jivitam Dharaishe. This is said by Shakuntala in Abhijnana Shakuntala in the 4th act, when she will be going to her husband's place. तिची पाठवणी होणार आहे त्याच्या आधी ती म्हणते की मलय तटावरनं जिचं उन्मूलन झालेलं आहे अशी चंदनलता कशी बरं दुसऱ्या देशामध्ये स्वतःचं जीवित धारण करू शकेल. How that uprooted creeper of the sandal can live in another place. Now here Chandana Lata, the word is very significant because Chandana Lata is not there. Chandana is a tree. sandal tree is there. म्हणून मग कालिदासाने शब्द काय वापरायला हवा होता? चंदन वृक्ष. But here Kalidasa specifically used Chandana Lata. Why? Because Chandana Lateva, this Alankara is used, this Upama is used for Shakuntala. So saying her like, sandal tree will not be appropriate. Lata gives that sense of delicate. Okay, Lata, that creeper is very delicate. She is delicate like the Lata. And when uprooted from one place, how, she will be able to live in another place. So here it is a linga vakrata. That linga, feminine gender, is specifically used by Kalidas to denote this. Otherwise, we may say that, Kalidasa is not aware that Chandana Lata is a wrong expression, but it is not wrong. But it is adding a beauty. So rigorous classification of Vakrokti is available. So similarly, there is another theory called Auchitya, which is propounded by Kshemendra. Auchitya is nothing but appropriateness or the propriety. Everything is, should be appropriate. Like the structure of the poetry, the words, the meaning, the concept, etc. Again, Kshemendra includes all the elements of the poetry under the umbrella of Auchitya. We can see his classification. He has classified Auchitya into 27 types. So Pada Auchitya, Vakya Auchitya, Guna Auchitya, Alankara Auchitya, Karaka Auchitya. He has also included grammatical, elements into those. So one also needs to know grammar if one wants to analyze this Auchitya. Okay, and he has analyzed many texts from this Auchitya point of view. He gives example of Auchitya and Anauchitya also. I will take just one example. We will take again same example, Kaschit Kanta Viraha Guruna. So it is called as Pada Auchitya, which is very much essential for Shrungara Rasa. If the word Kanta was not used, then one would have said, oh, what so for 1 year of separation? Because she is a Kanta, that 1 year of separation is very, very long for Yaksha. So this is Pada Auchitya. Okay. And he has cited examples of Anauchitya also. For example, this is Rasa Anauchitya. Here, the subject matter is Kumara Sambhava. And Kalidasa is describing Akala Vasanta, Vasanta Vardhana it is. And after that, there will be, actually it is a basis for the union, Milana of Parvati and Shiva. So it is actually Shrungara Rasa is nourished. But here Kalidasa, while describing the Karnikara flower, he is saying that, oh, Karnikara looks beautiful, but there is no fragrance. So how is, Vishwasruja Pravruti, how is the attitude or perspective of the creator that he has not given fragrance to this flower? He is criticizing creator. So Kshemendra criticizes Kalidasa, saying that now it is a subject matter of Shrungara Rasa, which is delineated. Then why you want to criticize here creator? This is out of context. So he gives this as example of Rasa Anauchitya. So rigorous classification he has done. He has given 27 types. So if one wants to study any text from Auchitya perspective, then one has to apply these 27 types to particular, text as such. Okay. So these were all, the poetic theories, what we can say. But one has to implement these only when one has taken poetic approach. If you have taken philosophical approach, then you may not apply these theories at all. Then you will apply philosophical theories like that. Okay. So I think now I will stop here. I can take in short if there are any questions. I know the poetics theories, I have just taken the cursory glance or I have just given the introductory overview. But some students will be studying this in subsequent semesters. Therefore, I have just given introduction, and those who are more interested in that also can read related books.
कुणाला काही प्रश्न
No
असतील तर
questions
विचारू
at all.
शकता.
Yeah, ma'am, Yogendra here. Can you hear my voice?
Yes, yes, yes.
Ma'am, so going through this lecture, it was okay, but I am into a little confusion. Like, कि आपण हे understand करताना I can understand things. Like I take couple of words like व्यभिचार. व्यभिचार till now I was knowing it is a wrong word to use out. पण इथे आपण बघतो की हा वेगळ्या अर्थाने आहे.
हो,
So
नक्कीच.
while doing MA, I feel like I have not done the first standard, second standard studies, and I'm already in 10th standard. To mitigate this gap, what should I do so that I understand how to reach to understand this, doing research in a philosophical way, doing research in a poetic way, or whatever, that's the
Yeah,
whole.
yeah, very
It's like
good
I was
question.
sitting
Very good
on a
question.
verge, and now I'm in a whirlpool. I cannot find myself, I'll reach or not.
No, no, don't see, I know it is a too much information for you, but don't get confused because of that. See, why overview is necessary? Because, someone from you may feel that, oh, I would like to do research in further semesters, maybe, even if, not now, on this particular perspective. So that, you may go into that detail. Now, coming to your question, that, while doing philosophical study, you may have to understand that particular word from that particular context. See, text cannot be interpreted without context. Okay, so now we were understanding the vyabhichari bhava in that poetic context. So the word is meaning different. But if you are understanding it from that particular general perspective, or if it is a philosophical text, if it is a technical term like paribhashika savnya, then you have to understand from that particular perspective, of course, because your perspective is philosophical perspective, correct? You can't then suddenly go into poetic perspective and show the poetic understanding. No, not at all. Therefore, we have seen vachyartha, lakshartha, and vyangyartha. Okay, so when you are studying the Shastra treatises, okay, in those Shastra treatises, you can't simply go on to understand Vyangyartha or Dhvani, that I am understanding this by Dhvani. No, not at all. Because in Shastra treatises, Vachyartha is very important. Vachyartha has got, first place. Therefore, Mimamsa says it as a dosha when you have to resort to the secondary meaning. It has said it as matvartha lakshana bhaya. Okay, that you have to understand secondary meaning means it is Shastra dosha. So in Shastras, we have to restrict ourselves more to Vachyartha. If Vachyartha is not befitting, then only to Lakshartha. But when it is poetry, Vyangyartha becomes more important. Because if it is only Vachyartha, then the poetry is very, very simple. Okay, it is not giving you a depth. So sometimes one book you are reading multiple times and you are realizing multiple layers. It means you are realizing different suggestions given by author after certain period of time. That is Dhvani. But that is where in the poetry, in Shastra also it happens. But it is not open to suggestions. What is important in Shastra, what is conveyed should be understood exactly like that. Otherwise, there will be subjective interpretation. Correct? So, it is according to context, basically. I want to say that text should be interpreted according to particular context. Without context, it should not be interpreted. Then there will be misinterpretations. Many a times one verse is picked or one word is picked, and then people are doing, giving the meanings. So that is very harmful, because without context, if you do that, then most possibly it will be misinterpretation or wrong interpretation.
So my question is how that foot ruler comes. How is I know that the concept is this and not other thing? Like yesterday's Mimamsa lecture also, there was
Yeah.
a word which is Chodana Artha Dharma. I was totally taken aback on this. But when understanding the further discussions, I understood, okay, there are many other interpretations and concepts, but I don't know where to and how to start for the concept, whether I'm into the right way of thinking or not.
See, first of all, the context is important. We have to read the context. That is one thing. Then there are commentaries on that. Traditional commentaries are there. Sanskrit commentaries are there. One has to read that. There are modern commentaries also.
So how to find them?
Yeah, after analyzing that, you will find out. That is the right.
How to find these all things that there are and where to get them or how I reach them?
They are in the books, internet, multiple sources are there to search. Suppose now Yoga Sutra, how many commentaries are there? Suppose
Many.
Vyasa Bhashya is there, but there are some commentary which are less studied. There, that also can be explored. Now, first part I took about the different editions. So there can be some unexplored commentary also in the form of manuscripts, which is not yet published. So suppose you visit some manuscript library and you get such commentary, that can be valuable. So you can work on that also, you can see that particular word, how it is mentioned in that commentary. So you will be enlightened. So it is not that we will know, it is not like magic. We have to follow this scientific process. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Fine.
Anyone else? Or shall we stop?
फीडबॅक लिंक टाकलेली आहे चॅट बॉक्स मध्ये. सगळ्यांनी फीडबॅक लिंक जी आहे ती भरून ठेवा. बालाजी म्हणी.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
बालाजी म्हणी.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thanks, ma'am.
बालाजी म्हणी, आर यू देअर? We will meet at 1:45. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Kindly note that we will meet at 1:45.
Noted, sir.
बालाजी म्हणी. बालाजी म्हणी. बालाजी म्हणी. बालाजी म्हणी.
बालाजी म्हणून